Let's see how this is going. Awesome. We'll start this up at 7:30, guys. Give it about a minute. Make sure everything's going smooth. Awesome. All right, what's up, guys? My name is Roman. If you haven't met me, I'm part of the FTR team, especially doing draft content here, and we're going to start up this mock draft 3.0. Basically, it's going to be where you guys make the picks. If you guys signed up in our Discord and our Google Sheet down below, you guys are able to select your players and pick your team and kind of pretty much be your GM and test everything out that way. But otherwise, if nobody's selecting a certain team, I will be making the pick myself and giving my rationale behind each selection. So yeah. We'll get started here. As of right now, we have our first pick for somebody who is drafting other than me will be at number 21 for the Dolphins, and there's a plenty more down the road, so we'll start around there. But for as otherwise, we'll start right here at number one overall with the Tennessee Titans. I feel like this is a pretty obvious selection for many of us. It's been the consensus quarterback one, and it's been Cam Ward for feels like some time now. The Titans have really focused in on Cam Ward, especially in the last couple months with the private workouts after his pro day. He canceled a bunch of private workouts with a bunch of other teams, so he's pretty much now the only real option for Tennessee. And Tennessee needs a quarterback. They've shown that. They've addressed the offensive line in free agency with guys like Dan Moore and other depth pieces as well. So yeah, they're starting off strong with Tennessee here at number one, and it will be Cam Ward. Number two has been an interesting development here for Cleveland. Everybody pretty much thought early in the draft process that this was going to be Shedeur Sanders at number two. I remember early in the draft process specifically, Shedeur Sanders even had at one point was the favorite to go number one overall before Cam Ward had his ascension at Miami. But now Shedeur Sanders has kind of fallen off a little bit down the board. I don't know if it's necessarily due to people saying there's character concerns, even though many teams have not really been in the building with him and know how he really reacts around a team. So I kind of find that stuff a little bit false. Other than that, Shedeur is a solid prospect. His arm strength is something that is definitely in question, and his athleticism as a whole, compared to guys like obviously Jalen Miller, who's super athletic. But there are questions around Shedeur Sanders, so I will not have the Browns going quarterback here at number two. I will have them going with Travis Hunter, who is pretty much the favorite to go at number two. Pretty chalk so far, nothing crazy. Travis Hunter plays both sides of the ball. I can imagine he could do that in Cleveland. He could thrive well as a wide receiver, as they really need wide receivers. And he wouldn't necessarily have to play that cornerback one role in Cleveland, as you have guys like Greg Newsome there who could help him on the perimeter. And he won't be pretty much the only corner that he's really focusing on in that position. So he'd be able to play a lot of wide receiver, and then kind of rotate in that corner, which I think would be the best role for him as a NFL player. Number three here with New York. New York is a interesting trade down spot for me because obviously we know their needs at quarterback. They pretty much are running into the season with Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, and I don't know how comfortable they are doing that walking into the season. So I'd imagine they go quarterback eventually. At number three is the real question. Do you go quarterback? Do you go a guy like Shedeur Sanders? Do you make a surprise pick with a guy like Jackson Dart? I'm not sure. That's up to them. But in my case, and if I were the Giants, I go best player available. And if I'm not trading out the pick, I'm going with Abdul Carter, edge out of Penn State. He's somebody you could pair along with guys like Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns on the outside. We know the concern with Abdul Carter is that his frame is a little bit small. He's not the biggest and heaviest edge rusher out there. He won't be very powerful off the edge, but he does bring some speed, and his twitch is something that you rarely find in an edge rusher. So being able to pick him at number three would be great for New York. Entering that edge rotation would create a dominant defensive line, as they already got guys like in the interior like Dexter Lawrence. So you want to add strength on strength here with Abdul Carter going to New York. Number four with the Patriots is something where I believe you should go offensive line. That's just me. you could go a guy, if you really want to be bold, you could go with Ashton Genty. You could go with a guy like Ted McMillan or Luther Burden on the outside. But the main revolving goal around the Patriots at number 4, other than obviously trading back, would be to help Drake May out. You invested a lot in Drake May in these last couple of years, or last year, obviously, with the number 3 overall pick. You didn't start him until about midseason, but you saw the flashes from Drake May. He really showed out in his short time that he had in New England. But you have to do whatever you can to put weapons around Drake May and protection around Drake May. You compare that to a situation that Caleb Williams, for example, walked into last year. We thought he had the weapons. He still has pretty good weapons, but you need to shore up that offensive line, and Chicago learned the hard way with that one. So I don't think New England wants to go through that whole trouble with not having an offensive line around them. They've addressed in free agency somewhat, but you have to do it in the draft, and you have to do it here at number 4 with Will Campbell from LSU. At number 5 has been an interesting spot for me with Jacksonville. You could go a variety of different places. You could go for wide receiver. You could go with the best player in the draft in Mason Graham, which I mostly lean towards. You could make a surprise pick and go Ashton Genty and kind of boot Travis Etienne out of that situation. But in my opinion, I'd select Mason Graham out of Michigan. He is the best overall player on this board, in my opinion. You could make an argument for Ashton Genty, but Ashton Genty obviously is a running back, and he's more of that finishing touch you put on offense, as the Jaguars' defense, which will be needing Mason Graham, needs a lot more than just an interior defensive lineman. He will help a lot. He will definitely bring that whole unit together on the defensive line, as he could really, really go after the passer or the quarterback and could stuff the run in the middle. He's really a do-it-all kind of guy. Any team would love to have him. And that's where I have Jacksonville going here at number 5. At number 6 with the Raiders. We're going to be pretty much chalk here for the most part until we get up to 7, 8, 9, where it could get really interesting, and then obviously the draft board will fall out from there. But I have the Raiders going with Ashton Genty. Nothing too crazy so far. We have pretty much the consensus. Genty would be something that the Raiders obviously very, very much need as a running back. He is one of the best overall players in this draft, in my opinion. His contact balance is absolutely unbelievable. He bounces off tacklers. He could hide behind offensive linemen standing at only 5'8". You ever watch him in college, especially against that game against Oregon early in the season? You really saw him hide behind those tackles and burst out of nowhere, and that's how he created so many 60, 70-yard touchdowns in college. Remember, every week you check, he'd be at 200, 300 yards and X amount of touchdowns. It was insane. But Vegas could really use him. You had an ascension with a guy like Brock Bowers last year at tight end. You're kind of still lacking at wide receiver, in my opinion. You have Jacoby Myers, who's a solid number 2 wide receiver in the NFL. You're kind of missing that number 1. But in my opinion, Ashton Genty is such a good talent to the point where you could draft him as high, like I said, as high as number 4, and any team could be willing to take him and will have a number. You could have somebody where you could draft him at number 6. So I have Ashton Genty here at number 6 to Vegas. Number 7, the Jets could go a variety of ways. You have tackles like Armand Membu still left on the board. You have a guy like Tyler Warren still on the board. Obviously, there's still a bunch of guys like Ted McMillan. Do you go Malachi Starks? I'm not sure. But in my opinion, you got a quarterback in Justin Fields. You saw what happened to him in Chicago and even in Pittsburgh a little bit. The protection, when it's not shored up for him, he really relies on his legs. And you don't want that. You want Justin Fields to take that next step as a passer. And whether that be being a pocket passer, whether that being a scrambler. But he uses legs, although being great at it, way too much in his times in Chicago and Pittsburgh. And you need to protect him on the outside. And that's what will do here with Armand Membu at number 7. We have, let me check right here. Just making sure nobody else entered because there's still some people entering the chat and select being GMs. So whoever is in the chat, we have guys like Boliv, Tyler A. If you guys are in watching the stream, let me know what you guys pick. I'll check it and I'll give you a rationale out there. But as of right now, our first pick actually will be coming with the Bears at number 10. So that will be soon. Awesome. Number 8 here with Carolina is interesting spot. You kind of have to the Carolina kind of pigeonholed themselves in going defense this year. Obviously, we saw how atrocious their defense was last year, and you cannot let that happen again. But you also, at the same time, need Bryce Young to show that he could be a superstar quarterback or even a starting quarterback in this NFL if he was benched last season. But the one thing that Bryce Young does have is an offensive line. So he has one of the probably honestly the best offensive lines of football, which many people don't even realize. He is, I think he's, if I remember correctly, the Panthers were top three in offensive line spend last year, which is something that many people don't even really realize when you think of Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. So as much as you think his weapons are lacking, his offensive line is there, and you could draft weapons in the second, third round. This wide receiver class is super deep. I know people like going Ted McMillan here at number 8, or even a guy like Luther Burden, or a wide receiver, or Tyler Warren even, in general, here at number 8. But in my opinion, I think you go defense, and I think you go with somebody that is very versatile, rushing the passer and playing off-ball linebacker, and that would be Jalen Walker out of Georgia. Jalen Walker to me is a very interesting player. You don't get many guys like him in the NFL. He reminds me a lot of what they had in Frankie Louvu 2 years ago, if you guys remember him. Frankie Louvu was one of those hybrid linebackers that you could blitz off the edge and drop back in coverage. You don't really find those guys in the NFL that much, especially at linebacker. It's really difficult for a guy to be able to drop back into coverage and come in off the edge. And Jalen Walker does just that, and he played that at an elite level in Georgia. So the Panthers could really have that centerpiece of their defense here with Jalen Walker at number 8, and that's who I have him going with. At number 9 with the New Orleans Saints, the way that the board is kind of fallen here to the Saints isn't really in their favor, in my opinion. They You still have guys like Shedeur Sanders. Do you go Shedeur Sanders here at number 9 for New Orleans? That's definitely a question you ask. Do you go with a guy like Jahad Campbell and shore up that defense? Maybe even edge with a guy like Mike Green. I am really tempted to lean Shedeur here at number 9, but do you really want to risk your future, especially at this point when you don't really know if Derek Carr is coming back? Yes, there's reports of him being injured for the whole season, but there's still always a chance that he could, you know, he could play half the season, and you're pretty much drafting Shedeur Sanders to sit there, which I don't know. This draft, in my opinion, this quarterback class is very weak. I don't think it's worth, other than maybe taking a quarterback. Yeah, I'm gonna pass on Shedeur Sanders here. Even there's a chance they could maybe trade back into the first round and maybe even falls to them, or a guy like Jackson Dart falls to in the second or third round. I'm having a tough time deciding what to go with here at number 9 with the Saints, but one guy I've always leaned on in on defense especially, Michael Williams out of Georgia. Michael Williams also, in my opinion, Cameron Jordan. He's that big, long, run stuffing interior. He could play from the interior, or edge rusher that the Saints need. Cam Jordan is getting up there in age, as we all know. This could be the Cam Jordan successor in the defense in New Orleans. He could Cam Jordan and teach him his weak ways, and get him to be the next great edge rusher. Michael Williams, I'm going to face the competition. That's what he plays. Then I have so wait, for the Bears pick here, we will, if you guys, or let me check real quick. Boliv, if you are in the live or in the chat, send in your pick here at number 10 for the Bears, and we will. If you are interested, like we have these picks for this course. We didn't have those positions filled out, but as of right now, we got a lot of people making picks so far, and you guys are pretty much a GM, so you guys can make these picks, and I'll report them for you guys. So we got our pick here at number 10 for the Chicago Bears. Wait, I just pulled something up. I'm sorry. For the Bears here at number 10, we have edge rusher Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. As a Bears fan personally, which now you guys know, I would be very interested in Shamar Stewart. We obviously saw everything he showed at the combine. This dude tested as one of the most athletic defensive linemen of all time. Honestly, probably the most athletic defensive lineman of all time. He is crazy measurables, standing 6'4", 6'5", huge, absolutely built. But the one question is his college production. He played at Texas A&M for 3 years and had 1.5 sacks every year. Now, that's pretty atypical for a guy going at number 10 overall, especially an edge rusher, averaging 1.5 sacks a year and not generating pressure. But what I could tell you is from my time watching Shamar Stewart and watching his film, This dude generates pressure. When he is focused in on getting to the quarterback, he will get to the quarterback by all means necessary. Great edger. Texas A&M put him in a lot of formations, focused on stopping the run and not traditionally rushing the passer. Straight line. I'm gonna go get the quarterback. He didn't have that much at Texas A&M. Now going to the Bears, he will have the ability to four in the 40 for a defensive lineman, which is unheard of. So he had the opportunity to learn from guys like Montez Sweat off the edge and newly signed Dayo Odengbo. So Shamar Stewart is probably one of the most boomer bust players in this draft, but he definitely has the ability to become a star if he's able to be a pretty much designated pass rusher. So Shamar Stewart to the Bears is something I am definitely interested in as a Bears fan. So thank you for submitting that pick. We now have the San Francisco 49ers up next, and we do not have a GM for that, so I will make the pick. Let's see, who do we got available on the board for the 49ers? One guy I really like to the 49ers is Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. This guy, in my opinion, has been one of the consensus best players in the draft for me. He was an absolute lockdown corner in the Big Ten for Michigan. The only question is he's had some injury issues, and his speed down the field raises a little bit of question. The further he gets downfield, the slower he kind of gets as he starts running, and he that's pretty much the question. Beat deep, he'll really get beat up if you send him on go routes. But the one thing is, he's really physical. He can press you at the line of scrimmage. He makes plays. You ever see his highlights and his film? He gets on the ball quick. So that is somebody I'm definitely looking forward to if I'm a 49ers fan. Isn't anything fit? Obviously, he could slide in right next to Fred Warner, which I guess you really don't need necessarily, as you still have Fred Warner, and slide in to replace Dre Greenlaw, who made his way to Denver. So that's definitely an option. But if I had to pick, if I was a GM of the 49ers, if I was John Lynch, I would go with Will Johnson to shore up that secondary and make sure your secondary is intact, especially with losing Charvarius Ward in free agency. So if I was John Lynch, that is the pick I would make. We do have a GM for the Dallas Cowboys, so whenever he sends in the pick, we will be good to go. I'm going to take a water break right here real quick. Thank you guys so much for joining this live stream. It's been awesome. My first time hopping on FTR, and I'm really enjoying it. Thanks to everybody on TikTok Live earlier. Also appreciate it. And I love this format we got going on. I love the fact that you guys get to kind of play a part and pretend to be a GM. So as this pick's getting submitted, we'll be right back. All right, we got our pick submitted for the Dallas Cowboys, and it will be. Take a guess. No, okay. You guys, if you guys been following mock drafts, you guys pretty much know what this pick is going to be based just on how this board is going. It is going to be Ted McMillan to the Dallas Cowboys. One of my favorite fits for Ted McMillan in the draft, actually. You get a chance to be a wide receiver too. You don't necessarily have to step in automatically and be a wide receiver one and take on all that responsibility. You go to Dallas next to CeeDee Lamb, you have great mentors, and get to go to a pass-heavy offense that will get you the ball. Whether that you walk into Carolina where you're walking into a situation where you're not really necessarily sure if you're going to be getting your targets with Bryce Young, or if you walk into, for example, like the Buccaneers, who already have many different receivers like Mike Evans, Jalen McMillan, who's come on lately, and Chris Godwin. So you don't necessarily know if you're walking in to a great situation. But Ted McMillan gets to walk in as a wide receiver too, be the big body wide receiver on the opposite side of CeeDee Lamb. That would be huge for Dallas. Dallas has been like a wide receiver too for a while now. They finally get their guy in Ted McMillan, which I believe will be absolutely huge for his development and for the hopefully get into playoff contention now that Prescott will be healthy for the Cowboys at healthy. At number 13 for the Miami Dolphins, we do have a GM for this one. So whenever you are ready, you can make the pick, and we will be good to go. If you guys are in the YouTube chat, let me know who is your favorite player to team fit in this first round. There's plenty of guys that I think could fit well in the team, and I'll have it next week in the GM votes. Which I will be. I have a guy who I believe will fit really well in Indianapolis. We're waiting on the Miami. Right now, waiting on Dolphins GM to make his pick, and we will be good to go. Really appreciate you guys all sticking in here and joining this live. It's been awesome. We're going. I like how we're looking. Uh, now it's for at number 13. You kind of for Miami here. 13. I believe you kind of have to go offensive line. I know the replacement of Javon Holland as he left and to go to start could benefit walking time Miami secondary. Obviously, it kind of sucks with a great play, Jalen Ramsey request trade, but our GM for Miami is here, and we'll be making the pick. So we'll give it about 10 seconds, and we'll be good to go. We still got a lot of talented players left on the board. That's where the depth in this draft really shines through. In the later part of the first round, second, third round, it's where you really get to see a lot of these great players hope fall to great teams, and kind of sucks. There's going to be teams like Philly, teams like Kansas City, who end up with last year. So, all right. So number 13, a pick. We are going to go with Kelvin. Thanks to Texas, which two there just happened for Miami. Um, definitely doesn't help that happen, but you kind of had to predict it at some point. Teron Armstead was getting up there in age. You kind of rely on a tackle that late in his career to really stand up, play every single down, and really play at an elite level. So you're going to grab a guy in Kelvin Banks who is a traditional tackle. Will stick at tackle. You don't have to worry about moving him to guard like people have been saying with Armand Membu, and got a guy that can slot right into that tackle spot and play from day one. A great definitely believe at team. For the Colts at number 14, like I just mentioned, this is one of my favorite fits in this draft, and it's going to be Jahad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. One thing I've definitely noticed throughout the years, just watching the NFL, is that the Colts produce tackling machines. You have guys like Darius Leonard, you have guys like EJ Speed, who actually just left him in free agency, where I believe Jahad Campbell could slide right into. They produce guys who fly around the field and are centerpieces of those Colts defenses. Jahad Campbell could be just that. He could be that Darius Leonard that they had a couple years ago. Coverage and having him rush is really, really strong at. That is something where I believe he could slide in that and be a stud. So him going to the Colts would be awesome for him and awesome for the Colts. You get your centerpiece of your defense, which the Colts defense is a little shaky. It's about above average or about average, but they do need to reassure that defense just a little bit. And I think Jahad Campbell would be a great pick as he is one of in this early nowadays. But Jahad Campbell is worth doing that at this pick. So for the Atlanta Falcons next, we do have a. We'll give a couple about 2 minutes to make his selection, and we'll see where we go. You have guys like Luther Burden on the board, which is great for Atlanta. Matthew Golden is somebody who's been mocked a lot to Dallas at number 12. So could Atlanta go here? It's tough for me because Atlanta, you always think they could possibly go defense, but then they come out of nowhere and select the receiver, select the running back. Either that Atlanta goes defense. I guess we'll wait and see. We will wait and see. If you guys are watching and you're interested in being a GM for one of these mock drafts, click the link in the description. We will have you guys could enter in and be a be a GM for your favorite team. We've got a lot of spots open. So if you guys are interested, make sure you guys hit that description and join the Discord. There's a lot more value provided in the Discord as well. A great community in there. We are up to Atlanta at number 15. Awesome. Seems like we have a little bit of a lag issue. I'm not sure if it's the Wi-Fi or Riverside streaming platform. I'm gonna check the connection real quick. How stream quality did. Awesome. Looks like we're getting a little bit better. But anyways, we're gonna go with Atlanta here at number 15. Like I said, Atlanta always when you think they're going to go defense, they end up going offense. So, do I think I don't know if they're going offense. It's a tough question to ask. You always think in the back of their mind they need an edge, they need an edge, they need an edge. They end up going offense. The board has fallen all right for Atlanta so far. You have your Georgia guy in Malachi Starks who could end up becoming or coming home. Walter Nolan's been drafted recently. Great replacement on the inside. You all have guys like Donovan Ezraku and Mike Green, who I really like coming out of Marshall, becoming or being the most productive sack leader in all of college football. And I think this is finally the year that they go defense. Their new edge rusher, Mike Green. It seems like the almost defense. The stats might not show, but they got absolute studs on the roster. You got Bijan and Drake London. Now you got Darnell Mooney. You have Michael Penix. I think it's finally the time where you go defense and strengthen up that defense for Atlanta. Mike Green, the most productive edge rusher in all of college football, like I mentioned. Absolute crazy frame, dominated at the Senior Bowl, really showed out. That really boosts up his draft stock as a whole. He was consistently a second or third rounder, and now is going pretty much top 20 in every single mock draft. So that's why I have going to Atlanta here at number 15. 16 to Arizona. I believe this is a traditional line for me as I've gone through my mock draft. I think that's where it here as well. But the question is, do you go with a guy who you know could play tackle, or a guy that you know could play interior like Gray Zabel? One of the biggest what ifs in this draft, and probably the biggest what if in this draft, is Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Josh Simmons would have been a top 10 pick if he were not to get injured this year, straight up. He was dominant at Ohio State, and that says a lot. Going up against your Michigan guys like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, and your other guys that you have there in the Big Ten like Abdul Carter. Josh Simmons, if he was healthy this year, would have been a top 10 pick. And I think you pair him up with the other offensive tackle offensive tackle Ohio State, former Ohio State offensive tackle Paris Johnson. I think you pair those two up and you go Josh Simmons here at 16. Protecting your quarterback is always key. Josh Simmons, I feel like the Cardinals are put in a solid position to take a risk on Josh Simmons here, and that's why I have him going with here at number 16 to Arizona. I'm just double checking to see if we have a GM for the Bengals. We do not have a GM for the Bengals right now. So we'll move on from here. We have the Bengals here at number 17. The board has felt pretty bad for the Bengals because we all know what the Bengals need, and they need defense. And you need that defense to hit very quickly because you're paying guys like Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow upwards of $40x million. You're in a situation with, do you get rid of Trey Hendrickson? Do you make things work with him? You need defense all around the board. You need secondary help. You need linebackers. You now need defensive line. And a lot of those top guys like Mike Green and Shamar Stewart, Mykal Williams, Jalen Walker have fallen off the board for the Bengals. Where do you go here if you're Cincinnati? Do you go edge with a guy like Donovan Ezraku or a guy like James Pierce, who've been a little bit, you know what you're getting with James Pierce, but there has been some character concerns we've heard lately from him. Do you go with a guy like even Nick Scorton, which was highly touted early in the draft process? Or you could go defense with a guy like Walter Nolan or Jahdae Barron, who was falling a decent bit to 17 here with the Cincinnati Bengals. But I think if I'm the Bengals, you need defense everywhere. You go with the single best player on the board, and that would be Malachi Starks. This is somewhere I haven't had Starks going lately, and I think it could be a pretty good fit. We know how much Cincinnati needs defense, and if you find yourself in a position where you need defense all around the field, you might as well take the best player available. And in my opinion, that will be Malachi Starks here at number 17. Seattle here at number 18. I think this has fallen great for them. Now that Jahdae Barron has fallen to Seattle, I think he forms a crazy, insane cornerback trio with Devon Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen, and they're trying to recreate that Legion of Boom-esque feeling here with Jahdae Barron. Barron is somebody who thrives in zone coverage, kind of like Devon Witherspoon. He's very comparable to him. He thrives in zone coverage. He's a great and willing tackler. But if you have a guy like him where you could send one of Devon Witherspoon or Jahdae Barron on the outside, who won the award for the best cornerback of college football, you could draft him here at number 18 and pretty much slide him in wherever. He is probably the best player on this board. So I think he would be a great pick here for Seattle at number 18. For our GMs in the Google Sheets, make sure you guys are sending in those picks. We don't have anybody till Denver as of right now. So the GM of Denver, make sure you see who you want here at number 20. And let me know in the Google Sheets so we can get your pick on the board, and we'll be all squared away. So our next GM pick will be Denver. We have the Buccaneers here at number 19. One guy that's fallen down the board crazily to me is Tyler Warren. None of these tight ends, other than Tyler Warren, really impressed me, in my opinion. I'm not a big Colson Loveland guy, but I think Tyler Warren is an absolute stud. The thing is, do the Buccaneers need a tight end here at number 19? It depends. I'm not sure. This is probably the farthest I've ever had Tyler Warren fall in a mock draft. So this is new to me, trying to mock him in these later picks to a guy or somewhere like the Steelers or even Minnesota or Houston. It's just something. That's why you do these mock drafts. You play around with scenarios that you never know could happen. But I'm not gonna have him go Tyler Warren here. I will have Tampa Bay going with Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College. Donovan Ezeraku is a pure pass rusher, super rangy. They signed Hassan Reddick in free agency to a one-year prove-it deal. And I think Ezeraku could step on the other side of him and form a solid edge rusher duo pretty much right away. I feel like Tampa Bay's gone edge a lot in these recent drafts, and I'm not sure if they really shy away from that as they continue to evaluate this draft class. And I think they're pretty much dead set on going edge here at number 19. So the Broncos at number 20, we do have a GM for Denver. Let me know, GM of Denver, who you want here at number 20. We do have our pick here at number 20 for Denver, and it will be the guy who's fallen this far at this point to number 20 overall, which is somewhere I've never seen him really mocked. Tyler Warren to Denver. Tyler Warren to Denver would be amazing for Bo Nix. It'd be amazing for Sean Payton, who I think would have a ball with Tyler Warren at tight end. This dude lines up everywhere. If you watch him in film, he's lined up. He's thrown passes. He's lined up in the backfield. He's lined up out wide. He's lined up in the slot and at tight end. Sean Payton is somebody who could get really creative with guys like formerly, or still is a New Orleans Saint, like Taysom Hill. And I think Tyler Warren could not necessarily transition into that role that Taysom Hill was. Taysom Hill was kind of pretty much just a do-it-all gadget guy. Tyler Warren is a strictly tight end. But he has the versatility to move around in a bunch of positions at the NFL level. And he's somebody where I think it could be an absolute dream for Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos. And there would be so much fun to be had in Denver if Tyler Warren ends up a Denver Bronco. At 21 with the Pittsburgh Steelers, we do have a GM for this one, and we do have the pick. And it's definitely an interesting one. They do get their quarterback, and it will be Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado. Pittsburgh, it kind of sucks for them because they've pigeonholed themselves to this point where they need a quarterback. You cannot you cannot go into the season with Mason Rudolph as your starting quarterback, especially with the defense that you had, and after making the trade for DK Metcalf. You have everything set up around you for a quarterback to walk in and play good football right away. Now, if it's not quarterback in the draft, it's Aaron Rodgers or bust. So you kind of pigeonholed yourself to take a quarterback in this draft, and luckily for them, it is Shedeur Sanders here at number 21, which is an interesting fit. We'll see how he does in Pittsburgh if he were to go there. He is. I think he's very NFL ready, and could definitely slide in pretty seamlessly, especially with the acquisition of DK Metcalf. And we do have our pick here for the Los Angeles Chargers at number 22. And Harbaugh would get his Michigan guy here with Colson Loveland going to the Chargers at 22. Colson Loveland, I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not the biggest fan of. I really liked him coming into this season. This season he struggled with a lot of injury issues and necessarily feel as much. But nobody really saw the ascension of Tyler Warren that some and few people saw. But Colson Loveland, he could line up he is very strong. And even though I don't think he has necessarily the traits to be a complete star, he does have the makings of a very solid tight end, and kind of reminds me of just a little bit of Trey McBride out of Arizona. That would be my NFL comp for Colson Loveland, where I'm sure Harbaugh would be very thrilled to get his Michigan guy, whom he coached at Michigan, on his team. With the Packers here at number 23, we do have a GM for this one, so we will get a pick in very shortly here. The board has fallen really nicely for Green Bay here. You got a lot of the top receivers on the board left. Top receiver All right, we have our pick with here at number 23, and it will be Matthew Golden out of Texas. I am a huge Matthew Golden fan. This dude simply does not drop the football and runs great route. It pretty much does everything you want out of a wide receiver. His ascension this year on Texas has been something to see. Every single game, it seems like he gotten better all the way up until the college football playoff. If you guys remember the one game versus Arizona State where he caught the game-winning touchdown, didn't really necessarily have play a huge factor in that game, but as the game wound down, he made big plays, and that is one thing he's done all season for Texas. I think his best football is ahead of him. Coming from Houston to Texas, he has been an absolute monster. And something that was really surprising at the NFL Combine was Matthew Golden ran a 4.2940, which pretty much nobody expected. Everybody was thinking his Texas teammate Isaiah Button was going to tear up the 40-yard dash. He even claimed he was going to break the 40-yard dash record. Little do you know, it was Matthew Golden who held the 40-yard dash record this combine for the Texas Longhorns and the whole combine, which is pretty cool to see. And he doesn't really have many weaknesses. He can play on the outside, play in the slot. Strong hands, obviously, is what you want out of a wide receiver. So the Packers getting Matthew Golden would be absolutely awesome for them, as they have a lot of solid wide receivers, but not necessarily that star. And Matthew Golden, in my opinion, could be that star receiver. So the Vikings here at number 24. We do not have a GM for this one, so we will continue and push on through. There's still a lot of solid players left on the board. I don't know why PFF has running back needs on the Vikings. I guess they could use a running back with Aaron Jones still coming back, but they still there's still a lot of good players left on the board here for Minnesota at number 24. And it's tough. Do you go with your eventual Aaron Jones replacement, as he's obviously getting up there in age, with Omarion Hampton? One place I've definitely gone in mock drafts with Minnesota has been the secondary. If Malachi Starks falls to Minnesota somehow, I pretty much have him as an auto selection to Minnesota. A lot of the cornerbacks, at least top name quarterbacks, have fallen off the board as well for Minnesota. So it depends. But there's one guy who's sticking out among the rest, in my opinion, and that is Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. Walter Nolan profiles similar, or what I think in general, to Jonathan Allen, who the Vikings just acquired in free agency. Jonathan Allen would be pretty much the perfect mentor for a guy like Walter Nolan. Walter Nolan is exceptional at rushing the pass. You see a lot into line, interior defensive lineman. You don't really see that ability to rush the passer. For example, a guy like Kenneth Grant, who's obviously an amazing player at stuffing the run, but having that extra pass rush ability as an interior defensive lineman definitely puts you up a notch and definitely takes your upside up to a whole nother level. And that's pretty much the reason why I would have the Vikings selecting Walter Nolan here at number 24. Is the upside is crazy with him. He could be an absolute game wrecker on the interior. People are starting to eventually realize that right now. And I believe they have him going with Walter Nolan and the Ole Miss product here at number 24. So for the Texans here at number 25, I think your guy, or CJ Stroud's guy in general, has fallen perfectly to Houston, and that would be Emeka Egbuka going to Houston. What the situation, we don't know his dad, but he's now. He obviously has two last year of this, and that third one, Diggs in free. With John, who's you kind of been benders. You tried it with Xavier Hudley. So Emeka now would be your wide receiver 2, and worst comes to worst, he'd be your wide receiver 3, where you could when you have Tank Dell return. So here, so him and C. That's a drop. I'm just gonna check to make sure if we have a. We do have a GM for the Los Angeles Rams, which is awesome, and our pick is in already, so that is awesome. At 26 we have him at the end. You saw this guy in person running the 14 fast, 4.29 speed. In corners, you don't really see that as much as you probably should, especially with the way the receivers are running nowadays. Played in the SEC, went up against the competition, super long and rangy. Kind of reminds me a little bit, if you guys know Dante Jackson, played for Carolina. I believe still plays for Carolina. Reminds me a lot of him. Crazy fast, super good outside, has great ball and something where obviously the Rams really need cornerback depth. One guy I've had personally go to the Rams a lot is Trey Amos from Ole Miss. I feel like the big thing around Trey Amos is he transferred up from Louisiana Lafayette to Ole Miss, which they say that the GM of the Rams, Les Snead, really likes guys who like to transfer up colleges. But in my opinion, I think Maxwell Harrison is the best player on this board. You don't find that athleticism at the cornerback position often. So when you do, you have to definitely take into account in your selection in terms of the draft. So I love that pick here by our GM, and I think that is a great fit for both Maxwell Harrison and the Los Angeles Rams here at number 26. So for the Ravens at number 27, as we wind down at the end of this draft, still have a lot of good guys left on the board for the Ravens. And there's one guy that sticks out to me who I've had go to the Ravens a lot in mock drafts is James Pierce Jr. James Pierce Jr., I remember one point early in the draft process, was actually pretty much the consensus number 1 overall pick and was a pretty heavy favorite to go number 1 overall in this draft. But the question or he has a couple questions, a matter of fact. His size, he's a little bit undersized for an edge rusher. He needs to get up add a little bit more weight. I believe he sits at around 215, 220, which is a little bit thinner for a guy, an edge rusher, but he wins with his speed. So you really don't necessarily have to bulk up like too much in order to try to generate pressure off the edge. That's his main thing. He wins with speed. And apparently, from what I've read, there's been character concerns. I don't know how true they are. So with interviews in general, I'm sure teams are beginning to really know the true James Pierce Jr. I'm sure making those evaluations accordingly. But James Pierce would benefit a lot in the Ravens system. He would be a designated pass rusher. You could send him off the edge and pretty much give him a chance to win on the edge and generate sacks. Kind of similar to what Odafe Owe did in his rookie season, where I believe he had close to 10 sacks in his rookie season, dominated as a third or fourth or second, third or fourth round pick. I can't really remember off the top of my head. You could send him off the edge and for the best. Yeah, he could be a solid player. We do have a GM at number 28 for the Lions, which is awesome. And we have our pick here with Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. It's a tackle, but a lot of people are projecting Gray Zabel to be honestly either a guard or a center in the NFL. And that's what Detroit does. They produce offensive linemen. The question is, how much of a role did Ben Johnson play into the development of these offensive linemen? If you guys don't really remember, Frank Ragnow and guys like that, Jonah Jackson, when he was there, when they walked into Detroit, they weren't necessarily the best offensive linemen in the world. They had a lot of development. They had years and years of development going into where they are today, being pretty much the consensus best line or lineman group in football. So if you got a guy like Ray Zabel in there and develop him, obviously going to North Dakota State might hinder him just a little bit in terms of the competition that he faced. But if he's able to really hone in on his craft and the Lions are able to get the best out of him, he could be that next great Lions offensive lineman on the interior. Obviously, guys, they had a home run pick with Penei Sewell a couple years ago. Let's see if they go with Gray Zabel here and make a great selection. Like I said, we're nearing the end of this draft. I really appreciate you guys sticking in here and being with me at first live stream. I believe this is going really well. Our board's really starting to come together, and I like how this draft is looking. So awesome. We do have a GM here at number 29 for the Commanders, and our pick is in, which is awesome. We have a really interesting one, really fun one. The more I think about it, would be pairing up Omarion Hampton in Washington with Jaden Daniels and company. Omarion Hampton is a true workhorse running back in the NFL. There's not many guys left like that, but he could walk in and immediately become your running back one no matter where he goes. I really like this pick just in general from a Commander's perspective. I'm not the biggest fan of Brian Robinson Jr. He's an all right running back, but you got guys like Austin Eckler who's getting up there in age, Jeremy McNichols who's I guess shown a little bit of flashes lately, but having Omarion Hampton, setting him in there where he could be that true workhorse back, pairing up alongside Jane Daniels, where Jane Daniels and him would create a lethal read option duo. This guy hits home runs, barrels off of guys, breaks tackles like crazy, pretty much does everything at a great level, like he did at North Carolina, racked up a ton of yards. He is pretty much the ideal running back one fit for an NFL team now in 2025. And Buffalo here at number 30, we have our next pick, and that will be Kenneth Grant. Buffalo has really lucked out in this situation with Kenneth Grant falling this far. I think he could go anywhere from as high as even inside the top 10, going to maybe Chicago or even Dallas or Miami. And he goes all the way to number 30 to the Buffalo Bills. It is a need for Buffalo. You pretty much have to. They've been drafting defensive teams lately a lot in the draft, and Kenneth Grant would fit nicely inside the middle of that defensive line. He's a big, burly run stuffer. He congests the inside of that offensive line and will generate a lot of pressure through the middle. Him and Mason Graham absolutely dominated the interior of offensive lines in college, and Kenneth Grant was solely helped a lot with Mason Graham's development, as Mason Graham was more of the, I guess, interior defensive lineman pass rusher, which some teams kind of run, but Kenneth Grant being pretty much strictly a nose tackle, not really nose tackle, but an interior defensive lineman whose main goal is to stop the run. And I think that's something that Buffalo really needs. they were getting gashed late in the season on the run. And if you insert a guy like Kenneth Grant in the middle, he will definitely alleviate some of that pressure on the other guys and make it a lot easier to stop the run for the Bills, which is huge for them as they enter late into the NFL season where it starts getting cold and people start running the ball like crazy. So that would be a great pick for Buffalo. We do have a GM for Philly at 32. This will be my last selection of the mock draft, and that will be for Kansas City at 31. I might take a little bit of time with this one because Kansas City has an interesting board looking at them right now. Luther Burden has fallen to 31. You have a guy like Trey Amos, Nick Scorton. I've traditionally mocked offensive linemen to Kansas City at number 31. Like I said, this wide receiver class is very, very deep. Do you risk going with a guy like Luther Burden when you can end up with a guy like Jalen Knoll or Jalen Higgins in the second or third round when you just necessarily don't need receiver? Princely Umanlian, who has a really high floor and frankly high upside in this year's draft. But I'm going to go offensive line with Kansas City after what we saw in the Super Bowl. You do not want that happening again. Yeah, in my opinion, the best offensive lineman available is Josh Connerly out of Oregon, and that's what I end up going with. Josh Connerly got a little bit of a bad rep just due to that video of Mike Green running him over in the Senior Bowl. If you guys haven't seen that video, his stock fell a little bit after that, but he played a very important role in Oregon's, obviously being the number one overall seed in the college football playoff. He played a very important role in that, in protecting Dylan Gabriel and that offense. And I think he could do the same for Kansas City. He won't necessarily have to start right away, which it seems like Kansas City is definitely valuing in their picks lately. I remember a guy like Kingsley Suamataia getting drafted last year. Didn't have to start right away, and now will most likely be the starting guard for Kansas City this year. So you give him time to develop, and it's definitely worked. You've seen for guys like Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey. Kansas City, frankly, produces offensive linemen. And if they could get Josh Connerly in there and develop him the right way, he could definitely be a very good NFL starter. And for our last pick, we have our last pick in the mock draft 3.0, which I really appreciate you guys for sticking in here and making picks and doing everything, watching the mock draft. I really appreciate it. Our last pick will be Josh Connerly's Oregon teammate, defensive lineman Derek Harmon out of Oregon, like I just said. I just clicked it and finished the draft. But that will be our last pick of the mock draft. Derek Harmon would play a huge role for the interior of that Philly offensive line. This guy generates pressure, frankly. He stuffs up that interior. He will have no issue trying to adapt to the NFL level, especially with you have guys like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis in place already who could definitely mentor him and turn him into a great NFL starter, and he necessarily won't have too much on his plate the moment he enters in Philadelphia, which anybody pretty much entering Philadelphia wouldn't necessarily have to have because their team just in general is so strong in all areas of the field. So anybody that pretty much ends up in Philadelphia is going to have a pretty seamless transition, in my opinion, from college to the NFL, as you have so many guys who can help mentor. So I love the way this mock draft is looking. I'll zoom out a little bit here and show you guys the full mock draft if you guys haven't seen it already. There you go. I really like the way this board fell. One guy I really think fell way too far, who I almost didn't even realize at one point, was Tyler Warren going to Denver, which would be a great fit here for Sean Payton and company. But otherwise, I really like how this draft went. I really appreciate all your guys' help in the Discord who made the picks. If you guys are watching right now, make sure you guys go in that description, join the Discord. You guys could help me make mock drafts, make this go so much better. You could be the GM of your team. How great is that? You get to completely take out the fan of you and pretty much enter in the world of drafting players. So that would be awesome if you guys did that. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I really appreciate you guys just sticking in here and watching the live. This is my first time on live, so I really appreciate it, being a member of the FTR team. So I really enjoyed it. I like how our board came out. I'll pull it up one more time. Okay, we got it right here. And yeah, I really appreciate all you guys joining. If you guys haven't, hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. If you guys want to check out our other socials, we got TikTok, we have Instagram, You can check out our website to read some of our articles. I've been publishing articles on there lately about the NFL draft. If you guys are interested, make sure you guys go to those links in our description. Like I said, I really appreciate you guys sticking in here. It was a great time, and definitely we'll probably be having another one out of these soon. So if you guys are interested in joining, make sure you guys hit that Discord in the description. So I really appreciate it, and thank you guys for being in here today. Awesome.